Good afternoon, traders. This is a Thursday afternoon, just a little summary, roll into the weekend, and a little education in terms of what I've been emphasizing when it comes to trading the futures and how you can put yourself in a much better position for consistency and profitable trades. That being said, this has been a pretty tight range bound market this week, but what's fairly amazing about this market really has been it's been rather predictable in these ranges. It's just the parameters have been just kicked up a little bit now. Like for example, this week was all about 1300 and I mean, excuse me, 4300 and 4270. And it gave you opportunities from both ends, whether you took the short reversals from 1300, that's going to be the test and the end of the conversation. And it rolled, and as it's been doing pretty much for the last few months, is every morning the market seemed to kind of roll down a little bit and stretch its boundaries, testing support, and then eventually finding its way back to unchanged or higher on the day. It's just how it's been playing out. It's been the same thing all week. And we kept coming down to the low 70s holding, and then they would just mark it back up. The only time we were possibly looking at a little trouble, and it always happens Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every time. In fact, if you looked at the last 5 to 6 Thursdays, I'm fairly certain that we've gotten a fairly big rebound from any type of sell off we had in the first 3 days. They always come back and bring it right back up, and they put an end to any of the conversation of the market reversing. And, the NASDAQ, I always pay attention to it. I talk about it all the time. I say, hey, if this thing's rolling, you're going to want to pay attention because obviously the S&P is fairly weighted with tech stocks, and it's going to have an effect. And even though the Nasdaq kind of took a hit, the ES held its ground fairly well, and it tried to threaten and it double bottomed around here around 68. In fact, I think that was a support level earlier in the week, uh, and it was. And we held it. It was the first time we even came to on this support level period. We've been hanging around settlement and the daily pivots. You can see the Nasdaq this morning, overnight, made a double bottom somewhere around here, around 14,250, and it just rallied all day. And the Nasdaq, for you guys, the future traders, if the markets get tight, like they do, and the volatility starts to get squeezed, you can move on to another market. There's been some unbelievable movement in the Dow, and I always talk about the moving averages and how significant they come into play. And, the Dow was a perfect example early in the week, and they were starting to roll. They broke through this one, and they spiked all the way down to this MA, and they came right back up. It gave a great long, and you can see the follow through the next 2 days. And today, it was about the NASDAQ. And here's a perfect example of what happened today in the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ jammed itself all the way up here, and in the afternoon, they rammed them all the way back down here. This is the MA. Look at that bounce off of here. What a great scalp coming back up. That was a 100-point rally off of that moving average down here. And for those of you who are trading ES, we were really kind of been in a tight range and pretty much how it's been fairly predictable in terms of how to play it. They rolled down this morning and they opened up, jamming them down to 64, 65, didn't take out the overnight low, and they found itself. And they immediately reversed like they've been doing all week. And they jammed them up and they just kind of congested. And they keep running them up to this 92 number. And this is a number, and you can see we're settling in at it right now. This is your 20% off the October lows. This seems to be some psychological level for, I guess, anybody looking for maybe us moving out of this bear market and rolling into a bull market. That's yet to be determined. But the truth of the matter is, this market is really strong, and you need to stay focused on the opportunities to the upside. Not that you can't trade the downside, you certainly can. I always talk about the extremes, And when the market's getting up into rare error, and this is kind of rare error, we're getting back into um, the 4,300 layer, 4,300, and I know there's a contract high up around 43.27 that we got to a long time ago. In fact, some point last year we got to it, and it's interesting because it was there 43.27. That was a contract high from last year. So, that's probably going to be the target, I would assume. And I don't know, maybe the breakout. I really don't know. It doesn't really make a difference. You can leave your opinions to the side. You just trade what they give you. And, you look at this, and I probably should have paid more attention to this because I usually run Fibonacci. And I've been kept asking myself, why was 155 uh, so significant for the longest period of time? And I believe I have it in here somewhere. I do, but my charts I need to be a little updated. But that being said, 155 is halfway back. 42 from that contract high to the October low. 50% of that move is all the way up to 41.55. That's why we kept kind of bouncing around in here and had a hard time. And then you kept we getting over 42, slammed them, but we kind of stayed in that ballpark. And this is where this thing broke out from. So like I said, where we go from here all depends on the money. Can we get more people involved? I think the bigger picture is kind of nicer now. The Dow was kicked in, and maybe they're getting some investment into a wider range of these S&P companies, which is helpful. So I think in the long run, you're going to want to watch this. Are we going to unwind out of NASDAQ? Are they going to just keep buying this up? I mean, it's unprecedented how much this thing keeps going up. I mean, look at this move. This move is from 13,000 up to 14.6, 14.7, somewhere, I guess 14.6. It's a significant move. So, I mean, will we be challenged up here or will we keep going? Will they bring in more money? Will we jack this thing back up? Will we scream? I don't know. At the end of the day, you want to play the extremes. You can take the shorts when you get failure up at the extreme resistance levels, and you always want to take advantage of the trend, which is up, and all the support levels, wherever they may come into play. So this is pretty much your analysis. This is how this thing's been playing out for weeks, if not for the last month and a half. And there's some great opportunities, whether you're trading the ES, the Nasdaq, or the Dow. And here's I have this circle lasting before I take off because this is where this thing came down. And this came a beautiful trade off this moving average. Now you're going to trade a Nasdaq, you better give yourself some room with your stops. Probably 20 handles, and I know that sounds like a lot, but this thing moves on air. There's a lot between the prices, and when they go, they go. And you got to give yourself a little leeway as you do in the ES or the Dow. I believe in if you're trading from the locations, which I completely emphasize, you're putting yourself in a nice locations. You can give yourself a little room on your stops. If you play the traditional two handles, you're going to get punched out. That's just how it is. They know how to get the retail traders out. They run their stops too tight, and that's what makes it aggravating. You get stopped out, and then you get the move, the real move. You got to give yourself room, and that's why I emphasize trading from the key locations. The pivots and your support levels. And like I said, today was pretty much an inside day as has been all week. Like I said, you got the 64 low, and then once it got above the pivot, and I always talk about location, your 64 low, and they eventually made their way to the daily pivot, and then it was a breakout from the daily pivot up to the highs, and they rammed them back over 1300. And the sell-off earlier in the week from the Dow, I mean from the S, was this 1305 double top. I gotta believe this is gonna come out. So be prepared for Friday. Look for the opportunity to get along in the lower opening. That's always the best opportunities. And when we're this bullish, settlement is always significant. And pay attention to this 42.92 area. Might come and play tomorrow. Might not. They might open them up. They might drag them a little lower overnight. You just never know. So it's the end of the week. Hope you guys are trading well. There's been opportunities. The ranges have been tighter. You got to manage yourself a little bit better. but they're there and they're consistent. So stay with it, stay focused. Trade with confidence, guys. Have a great weekend. Be good.